Greetings from the Preston Foundation, wherever you're joining us from. Thank you so much for joining us. Apologies for starting the program late. We had some technical challenges, but we are happy that we can begin our program today. So today I'm joined by a friend who is a director at the Preston Foundation. That's Kondwani. Welcome, sir.
Well, thank you very much, Webster. It's glad to be here. Glad to join you. I've always been in the background. It's kind of interesting because the day I choose to be on the front of the camera, power chooses to go and act up. So I'm in the dark right now.
There you go. All right, but it's good. We actually can see your face. Yeah,
that's good.
So those who are following us, please do let us know that you're watching. If you can get us loud and clear, please do confirm and invite your friends. Invite your friends, tag your friends, so that we can have a wonderful time together. All right, so today's topic is technology and the Zambian ecosystem, technology and the Zambian ecosystem. So we will be bringing on our guests and get started. All right, so Kondwan, are you ready to get started?
Yes. Well, okay. Good evening, everyone, and we're so glad for you to join us this evening. It's a wonderful evening that we believe that we'll have a wonderful conversation that will be beneficial not only for us today, but even for what is probably currently happening in our nation in terms of and globally in terms of technology, as we're looking at technology and the Zambian ecosystem. So to begin with, allow me to welcome Mr. Lindunda, Executive Director from Bongohive Technology. Luonga, welcome. Hi. Good evening, and how are you?
Good evening. Nice to be here.
Awesome.
Thank you for inviting me.
And secondly, I'll welcome Mimi Lungu, who will be joining us as well. Welcome, Mimi, to the Preston Leadership Forum.
Very much.
All right, sincere apologies. We are unable to have Wane Ngambi. He's just received a bereavement, and we really stand with him. Our heartfelt condolences to him. So he's unable to join us this evening on account of a bereavement which he's just received. All right, so maybe as we get started, I'll just give an overview of our topic today. So technology is the application of scientific knowledge for practical purposes, especially in industry. A variety of technology breakthroughs have impelled some considerable transformation of the Zambian ecosystem in so many ways. For example, in some sectors, there's been considerable transformation from the traditional 8-hour wake time to a more robust 24/7 accessibility. On mobile phone usage, the number of mobile subscribers base is about 4.7 billion, that's globally, which makes it about 61.2% of the global population as at 2020. Interestingly, there's an average of 950,000 users every day. That's according to statistics. Further, the total subscribers, out of the total subscribers, about 91% of the users go online every day. So 91% go online every day. The average time spent online is about 6 hours, 42 minutes. Social media penetration is estimated at about 51%. At present, half of the world population use social media, so which is about 3.97 billion users. So the average time spent on social media alone is about 2 hours, 22 minutes every day. Those are interesting statistics. Technology has transformed the world. It facilitates access and convenience to the distribution of goods and services. Collaborative tools such as intelligent virtual assistants, in customer media has become a significant platform for reaching customers. And we have seen that technology has brought about unprecedented process automation. For example, the idea of going paperless is one of the current buzzwords in the Zambian society. The government of the Republic of Zambia, for instance, is driving this agenda through Smart Zambia. And as we speak, government, the civil service, they don't use paper payslips. They use electronic payslips. Furthermore, technology facilitates analytics using archived and current data to make data-driven decisions. In terms of the Zambian ecosystem, the question is, how has technology impacted the system? What are the current developments, and how does the future look like for Zambia in terms of technology? How are we faring on the international level? These are some of the questions that we are going to look at today. So my co-host, how much time do you spend on social media? Statistics show that 2 hours on average.
Well, that's an interesting one because I'm trying to figure out. Obviously, there's YouTube, and then I now have Twitter. I resisted some form of social media until recently. So I'm on Facebook, the YouTube channel, as well as combined. I think I think might be true. Probably about 2 hours, yes, or less. But I don't think
All
it's
right,
more
so
than
we have
2 hours.
we have the experts to help us answer some of these questions. So maybe for starters, let's get to understand the importance of technology. How, from your point of view, Mimi, ladies first, you go first. How do you explain the importance of technology?
Technology is very important. I mean, it's the whole basis of our company, Hobbiton Technologies. We were
Mimi, can you, PK, are you able to get Mimi?
I think she's frozen. Probably network. We're having some network challenges today, but we can pick it up from there. In the meantime, Luonga, would you like to jump in?
Yeah,
So
sure.
with,
I was hoping by the time she would finish her answer, I would also have an answer. Kindly repeat the question.
Okay.
Kindly repeat the
so the
question.
question is, we are looking at the importance of technology, especially in today's space.
Yeah. So my name is Luonga. I'm Executive Director of Bongohive. So my perspectives are really from the innovation entrepreneurship space. I have a background in technology. I studied technology, and the work that we do at Bongohive is really around helping people their ideas and leverage on technology. So what we've seen over time is that the technology is a great enabler and also quite cross-cutting. So right now, whatever you are embarking on, whatever model, whatever business you're employing, you cannot run away from some form of technology. It could be as basic as using a phone to leveraging on, like you were saying, AI and data science and all these platforms and technologies that can help drive your business forward. But we see that it's quite pervasive to the point that sometimes we don't actually think we're using technology, and yet, we are actually using it. And some of these technologies that you may think don't apply to the Zambian context, and a way that people don't read how artificial intelligence is at work in our lives daily, and you think that maybe it has to do with all these robots and taking over the world. But each time we're using Facebook, each time we're using Google, we are actually using lots of artificial intelligence that's helping us do tasks much easier, much better. Things like autocomplete. You're typing an email, and all of a sudden, it tells you, okay, maybe you should use this word. And that's where you see that technology isn't necessarily something that you have to think hard about. And I really try to dumb it down to people out there when they're trying to look at how they can adopt technology. It's in the basics. And when you are able to focus on technology in the basic, you can really drive your goals, reach your goals, and drive your business forward, because you're looking more at what the technology can do for your business, and not necessarily how fancy it is. Yeah.
All right. I love that. I think Mimi will be joining us shortly. And I love the way Lukonga has just begun the conversation. And probably to be important to just know a little bit more about what Bongohive is all about, and how it started, so that from there we connect it to our topic today. Would you like to give us a brief on how it started? And
Sure.
yeah.
So Hive itself is made up of two words, bongo and hive. Bongo, actually, it's just an English, you could say, Western way of saying it, but the local way of saying it is ubongo, bongo, bongo. So the brain in a hive, a beehive, really represents who we are, which is we work with great minds building viable solutions that change the world. And the idea that this can be done like almost like bees, right? Working together, producing something that is sweet and can be in various contexts. That summarizes who we are as Bongohive. We've been around for just about 10 years now, almost 10 years. We're celebrating our 10th anniversary next year. And in working in this sector, we work with entrepreneurs in actualizing their ideas. And at various stages, we are able to run different interventions and programs that help people to not only begin to think of how they can generate business ideas, to if they have a business, how can they actually scale that idea? How can they run a profitable, effective, impactful business? And at the end of the day, what we're trying to create is also an entrepreneurship ecosystem, or at least support, not necessarily create, but support an entrepreneurship ecosystem that is progressive, that has less barriers to, and that really makes it possible for people, ideas that can change this country, this world, to really actualize those ideas. So we work at multiple levels, but when you look at innovation entrepreneurship, we would like to believe that Bongohive helps not only individuals, but also institutions that are opportunities in the innovation entrepreneurship space. Yeah.
Brilliant, wonderful words here, and I love the fact that you're talking about it's a hub, it's a hive combination. It's not just one person there, but quite different minds that are set there. Welcome back, Mimi. I'd like to bring you up to speed and just probably find out from you, and you could probably help us obviously begin this by just talking about what Hobbiton does and what it's all about and what you're doing currently, and then we'll be able to connect that to today's topic.
Okay. So Hobbiton Technologies was born out of a need of technology, in-house development by our sister company, Hobbiton Investment Management. Hobbiton Investment Management is one of the only digital mutual funds in the country. And this one is tailored to the mass market, which is something that wasn't currently seen in the market. Most mutual funds look at high investments, high yields, high deposits. Hobbiton decided to actually target the mass market instead. And these are people who are the unbanked, people who want to do savings, and people who use channels such as mobile money, which is something that people are not able to do on other funds, which is what came about with Hobbiton Investment Management. As we were building the technology, we went into the markets to look at developers and people who could support our development and our platform. And it was decided that we would actually do that ourselves and develop the technology and support the platform in-house, which is what built Hobbiton Technologies. That's where we're coming from. So basically, now expanded market, we're offering our services to the market to support development. We've got an internship program where we hire young developers from the local universities. Our team is Zambian grown and business is Zambian owned. So it's something that we're very proud and excited about.
Wow, beautiful stuff. Beautiful stuff.
Yeah,
I think we have a wonderful, capable team here that is influencing and impacting our nation with regards to technology. And I feel it's a well-able panel that we're able to discuss and contribute greatly that will benefit. Webster.
Yeah, absolutely. So maybe let's pick up the topical issue of COVID-19. I think the world is never the same, and I believe it will never be the same after this COVID. Now, maybe we can look at it from the point of view of I think coming to the realization of the importance of the digital space. I know some companies like where I'm coming from. Besides being the chairperson of the Preston Foundation, I'm also in the insurance industry. I think looking at the sector, we have kind of brought some plans that we had, say, 5 years, bring them forward in response to this pandemic, which has just changed the way things are being done. So, how are we doing in terms of, or maybe let me put it this way: why is it important for a third world nation like Zambia, and in response to the COVID-19, how do we? I mean, how is the importance? What is the importance of the digital space, and how are we responding to the COVID-19 technologically as a nation? As a nation, we can start with Luonga.
All right. So one of the reasons that inspired us to start Bongohive, if you look at the statistics 10 years ago, and some of the, you could say rhetoric, but a lot of conversations around Africa in 10 years ago were about Africa being mobile first, right? So we had our first that were bringing internet onto the continent, and when you some of the graphs, you will see that in the past 10 years, there's been far more internet cables that have landed onto the continent, bringing high-speed internet, and of course, you've seen more fiber even in the city and across the country. At the same time, when you see infrastructure development and all those things, what you have seen is that compared to the West, there's this terminology which people refer to, which is leapfrogging, right? So some of you may not, some of the viewers may not actually have used a landline before, right? But they went straight to a mobile phone. And that leapfrogging is very, very important in that if it took so many years for these Western countries to develop their infrastructure, because they have to go through this whole process of putting cables and putting landlines, and then trying to put internet on the landlines. But now you can just buy a smartphone and you have far more than your parents ever had in their whole lives. And that's really important in the context of what you would term as third world, global south, and countries. That when you can leverage on technology, it allows you to leapfrog. It allows you to jump over all the and avoid all the mistakes maybe, and the infrastructure investment and costs and challenges that some of the countries in the West and the Far East, of course, may have had to do to get to where they are. So technology now gives us the opportunity to accelerate development. And of course, there are a lot of statistics that show that, if a country is able to access internet to a certain degree, it has an impact on GDP. So we know that technology can drive development forward. And of course, to balance it out, it also creates a huge digital divide, right? But if you come back to the context of COVID, right, and that we are impacted by COVID and our economies are shrinking, technology represents then a way in which we can accelerate our development. And, in closing, just for this question, if you look at the amount of progress that we have made in the past 6 months, just in terms of government payments, for example, now, being able to pay for road tax so systems have been streamlined and costs have been reduced because COVID has helped us, to realize that we can do this. We have no option, allowed to stand in queues. Let's transact online. So I think that's COVID has revealed that we can do this and we can leverage on technology. And I think that beyond, if we get beyond COVID, and in the same attitude where we understand that technology can open up opportunities for this country, whether we are in a pandemic or not. If we can remain set that we can leverage on technology, I think as a country we can really get ahead quite fast and be competitive in the region. Yeah.
Brilliant. Wonderful stuff there. I'd like to pick out obviously a few things that you've mentioned there and probably just throw it to Mimi. Obviously you've talked about things having to do with how we've done a slight shift and being able to obviously not wanting to queue up. Now you can pay your road tax online and things like that. Mimi, could you probably just share with us, besides the road tax and probably the government workers pay slips that are being done online now, what are some of the latest developments on the tech side in Zambia, and how are we doing in terms of these developments in terms of internet things, mobile based services? How are we doing? What are some of these developments and how are we doing as a nation?
I think to echo what Luonga mentioned, what has happened is that once COVID hit and we had to basically stop doing business the traditional way we're doing, a lot of people went into either two streams, which is business continuity or trying to recover or trying to see how else they could do business, which has led to the growth we've seen. I think we've actually experienced what our 5 years worth of growth in the sector in the last 6 months. This has happened because people have learned to advance, they've learned to adapt, and they've found channels in which they can explore new ways of doing business. We've seen a rise in the use of mobile money. A lot of businesses are now doing online payments. There's a lot of mobile apps that are pushing in the market. Right now, I think for Lusaka and the Commonwealth, almost all services, you can access them online, from basic services. We see a rise in groceries. Groceries can be delivered. People are making payments to farmers online. And this has now grown to encompass even the corporate sectors. You've got companies that are coming on board and saying, okay, how can we do insurance online? How do we now begin to target on and include people who previously were not even able to access these services, because now we're taking the space and the product digitally. So you will find insurance services are going on USSDs. You will find mobile apps now will start hosting insurance services. You will find web portals are coming on board. And we're moving at such an advanced rate that currently, I think what will happen now is we'll see a new generation of tech savvy, business minded people. Business is now online. I think the old model we had of brick and mortar and over the counter payments will slowly fade away, where we'll be able to sustain the ecosystem and ensure that in the event of another catastrophe, God forbid, like COVID, we'll still be able to survive and business will continue.
Okay.
Awesome.
Wonderful.
I like that, Mimi, and it's amazing what how Hobbiton is responding to the current environment, and it's really amazing. Now, those who are joining us today on the Press on Leadership Forum, we are looking at technology in the Zambian ecosystem. So please feel free to send your comments. Do let us know that you're watching. I can see Thomas Musukwa, who has tagged in Tryness, please, that's what we want. Edgar Susiku, Ian Twambo, Lawrence Mumbwe, watching from Kalomo. How can I join this organization? We'll share with you. Edgar Susiku is saying interesting conversation. So please keep the comments coming so that we interact. This is an interactive forum, and we will be happy to address any questions that you may have. All right. Now, going by how this conversation is unfolding, I was having a conversation with one of the gurus in the industry, the IT, one of the IT gurus, young but is a guru. I think he has acquired, so he has done so much to this nation, and he made he said something, he asserted something around the process of digital transformation. So he said that the process of digital transformation is 50% people, 30% process, and 20% technology, which means it's not just done in isolation, or it's not just technology alone. These people, in fact, people takes up most of the part in the process, digital transformation. So I want to find out from you. Maybe I'll start with Luonga. From your experience, based on this equation which I've just outlined, how has been your experience like, and how is where are we finding it difficult in the nation, and what can we do to overcome the hurdles in the process?
Good question. I think that all transformation requires people and change of mindset first. And based on our experience, even the best technologies, most expensive technologies, fail if people don't have the right mindset. And sometimes when we come across some of this, or been involved in some of these conversations where you find that maybe a huge successful bank has a very expensive system that they've installed, and you find that maybe there are just a handful of people within the hundreds of people in the institution that know how to actually use it or actually using it. So in most cases, you find that the technology itself, like we say, it's a tool. It's not the end goal in itself, and it reminds me a lot about our initial days as Bongohive, where and in some cases these days where young people come through and they have a young person has an app and he says, look, I think this app will make me a lot of money because I've built this, and I know Mimi is laughing because these are conversations you have every day, and people are like, I'm gonna make money, and all I need is just money to kickstart my business. And you have to start telling the person that, what, put the technology aside. First, tell me a bit about yourself. Tell me about the business model, and then we can see a business. But that's from a young person's perspective, and you project that onto the whole country. You will see that, and of course, if you look at in the region or across the, you see a lot of trends where. And you need investment in people. If you look at our education budget, for example, when you look at that and analyze it compared to the rest of the priorities, that's where the problem starts, or at least it's part of the problem. Investing in people, we're not investing in the right curriculum, we're not investing in the right mindset. However fast our internet will be, and I'll probably end with this nice example that even with us having smartphones and with fast internet, most of us are as ignorant as we were. In fact, even worse than when we had one channel and ZNB. You'll be so surprised how even young people, you can use your phone simply for Facebook. Yet some of the simple questions that you can find answer there on Google, but people won't actually Google, right? So you will see that in many cases, it's just the mindset that, and also the tools and sort of the thinking that I can discover knowledge. It's there somewhere for it, and I can leverage on it. But lastly, I think that the issue of strategic leadership is very important for a country like Zambia. We have great examples in the region, like Rwanda and a couple of other countries. Great country Far East, where if you are able to give your people a specific goal in mind, and you really encourage your people and place on them responsibility that they have to acquire the knowledge, and that your country and our country can be a great nation in so many years, and these are the priorities. If you can do that strategically, a lot of us will align. A lot of the efforts that we are doing will align with that, and we can get somewhere as a country. So the issue of digital transformation, like you said, 50%, the issue of leadership is very important for us to get out of where we are now to get to where we need to be. And you can't solve that by just having high-speed internet or having 4G, 5G. You can put in as much technology as you want, but without the right mindset and right direction at individual level and at organization level and country level, we won't get to where we need to be.
I like that. I've heard of some organizations that have really done massive investments, thousands of dollars, just to acquire a system, but they can't use it, or just maybe a handful of people are able to use the system, and meanwhile they have spent so much. And I don't know, Mimi, what's your take on this?
I think that's something that I'm actually very passionate about, and it's something that we had to learn at Hobbiton as well. It's the concept of human-centered design. There's a lot of development that happens in the work where developers will build what they imagine that the public wants. We build systems, we build software, we build technologies, and we're convinced these are the advancements that are needed in the market. However, we forget one important thing, which is the end user. And human-centered design focuses on building from the end user point of view, whereby you actually take, for example, like you said, people will build systems and buy expensive systems. But why do these systems remain dormant? Why are there so many apps on the phone that people are not able to use? Why do people just stick to the 5 channels they watch on their pay TV, or and leave the 100 channels that they also paid for? It's because the needs of the market or the person or the actual user haven't been met, and which is the focus of human-centered design, which is that we need to build as people who build technology and systems for the users in order to engage the users and drive uptake of these products and services. And I think that's something that is advice to all the developers up there who want to be millionaires overnight. Let's build for the people. Let's look at design as the driver. And this also means that we're sorting out problems. We're offering real practical solutions when we do this.
Yeah, I love that. And I think from the practice point of view, it's really important to first, like even aligning to what Luonga said, there should be first a product or a service, and then tech becomes an enabler, all right? As opposed to the other way, where you start with a text, you start with technology first, and then you work backwards, say, guys, we have this system, how can we use it? It should be the other way around.
Yes.
Yeah. PK?
Interesting. Wonderful conversation here. I would like to ask Luonga this, and obviously we've talked about quite a number of things regarding technology and how that where the world is heading to right now. I love the fact where you talked about that much as we have smartphones, I know somebody who would say that it seems gadgets have become smart and people have remained dumb. And it's as though it's as though things are getting smarter, but we're not getting smart ourselves. So maybe Luonga, could you help us also understand? Do you feel we will get to a place where we have probably little to zero in terms of contribution on the human side? I know obviously there has to be input on terms of data and technology, but in terms of paper-based work and situations, especially that there's more involvement of technology, obviously the robots coming in and things like that. Do we see ourselves in the future, in the near future, even with artificial intelligence that completely is, sometimes, and I'm asking this because sometimes you hear people being afraid to say, no, when AI is in full, you lose your job. It's almost like everything will be defunct. It's almost like this technology will be working and we will be watching on the outside. Do we see such a situation happening?
Yeah, good question again. Look, I think that technology is also quite disruptive. On the other end, the digital divide creates a lot of creates this divide that increases lack, right? So a good example is COVID, right? During COVID, and even now, you noticed how with online platforms for education, you had those that literally had no access at all, and those that because they already had access to phones and all these platforms. So I think that the digital divide is a huge problem, and that is exacerbated right now, even with COVID. But going back to your question, when you talk about whether AI will cause job losses and all those things, the real answer is people have to adapt. There are jobs that will have to adapt, and those that will have to be lost, right? I'm reminded of a story where within a bank, the team that manages digital banking was fighting the team that was keeping the buildings and the branches open and trying to make sure that there were enough tellers in those buildings, right? And that's really what's going to happen in most of the organizations, in that they have to adapt. A good example, I was reading a story about a Sony factory in Japan, which I think has about 3 or 5 people, and the rest are robots, right? And they assemble about, I think, a number of PlayStations every minute, right? And most of it is being done by robots. Japan is way ahead, of course, and we are still getting there. But really, when it comes down to what's going to happen going forward, a number of research papers around the future of work will tell you that, will inform you that it's all about adaptation at this point, and the skills that are needed to adapt to that technology, that is going to, drive business forward and drive efficiencies. Either you adapt or you die, but there's really no option there. And really, I feel sorry mostly for people who don't want to adapt, because that's where the challenge is. But really, if you're a young person, you've got a phone in your hand, you've got internet, the opportunities for you to learn new skills and adapt are plenty. And people shouldn't really be scared about, what AI and all these technologies will do for them. In fact, they should see them as real opportunities to enhance their careers and explore opportunities that no one has ever done in the history of mankind. Yeah.
Really awesome. That's wonderful. And it's interesting that, obviously, like you're talking about, I love the fact that you mentioned that we have to adapt. It's almost like, even just now, in the times that we've had COVID before us, we've had to adapt to many things. Well,
Yeah.
one example I'll probably give is, I don't know if when we woke up, probably in January 1st, we ever imagined that churches would not meet physically. And then all of a sudden, church was online. I don't know if anybody ever thought of the entire school system not having class physically. Not, there's online school and things like that, but other institutions were just still stuck to being having physical class. But then things changed, and we had to adapt to this kind of life and begin to change and begin to make certain adjustments. Maybe let me throw this to you and probably get some more information from you. So when it comes to connectivity, and obviously sometimes we do experience some challenges here and there, do you feel we have reliable connectivity, and where is the problem if not, and what are some of the solutions, especially with regards to internet?
I think when you look at it on the whole, we're better than most, but we could be better. I think some of the things is it's a combination of an intersection of several factors. We need to look at the scope of the network, the reach of the network. We also need to factor in pricing models. Is our internet affordable even when it's available? And I think those are the challenges that drive accessibility. So when we look at what happened with the school system, one of the issues was those who were able to afford the price points and to afford the technology were able to access it. And one of the things that I think wasn't properly explored were the lower end price points and lower end access points that would have been taken to the mass market. And this is also comes to the point of adapting and also business continuity. Those are factors that were not really explored. So the technology is there, it's available, but I think the response in terms of how do we adapt quickly to the situations that happen so that we're able to reach a wide section of the economy and those who actually do not have access, I think that's where we dropped the ball with COVID. There were many opportunities for us to actually come on board as a business sector, as government institutions, and actually look at ways but it's a learning curve. It's something that we need to look at. If you look at the price point of mobile devices right now, basic internet-enabled devices have actually dropped in the price point. Previously, we were talking about 2,000 to 5,000, but currently on the market, you are able to get internet-enabled handsets for even up to 500 kwacha. But then on the higher end, we're now talking about devices that cost as much as 32,000 kwacha. So when you look at that actual price point, you're talking about, okay, where do we find a fit for everyone across this widescape that's available?
Awesome. All right. I like this conversation. I mean, what is unfolding, what you're bringing out, Mimi and Luonga. Just love it. Now, there's this. Maybe let's look at the issue of uptake across sectors. I know we are talking about digitalization and digital solutions and whatnot across sectors. Do you see better uptake in certain sectors and poor uptake in certain sectors? And what do you think are the key reasons why certain sectors are doing better than the others? Maybe we can start with Luonga.
All right. I like to believe that one of the things that drives adoption really is payments, and being able to provide easier payment solutions is really what drives a lot of business, right? And a good example is ZRA, for example, right? So if you're able to pay through your bank and all those things on those platforms, then compliance has increased, because the friction that people had when having to go and line up at the ZRA office for a few hours or a day just to pay, but now you can pay online. You don't have this barrier for you to just be compliant, so it increases compliance. And we see that in a number of other platforms. Even now, when you are able to order online, what enables that a lot, what enables the convenience is that you are actually also able to pay either by mobile money or other platforms. I think it is in there that needs to be exploited, and I'm glad that the payment switch that's coming online has been coming online in different stages, which should allow for transfer of money between platforms, either from MTN to Airtel, or paying for goods via mobile money. Let's say you're shopping at the Kantemba. So I think that payments is a great enabler. Once you can unlock and make it easier for people to transact, goods follow. The money. And what we've had before is that without easy payment options, people resort to cash. Cash is expensive as well, and inconvenient in many cases. And by providing these technology platforms, it really drives adoption. So the usage over the weeks, especially with COVID, I think that easier way of making payments has enabled us to access more services. You can imagine if we didn't have mobile money and all these other cashless platforms, it could have been a different story for us during COVID. So I think that payments has unlocked a lot of opportunities who are able to transact, receive money much more easily, and therefore it's driving adoption. And once you can get that, the goods following the money, and e-commerce, then you see other platforms and other ways in which technology can be adaptable in the economy, because everyone uses money every day.
Using mobile, payments through mobile money solutions. That's very important, and I think it's across sectors. I come from the insurance sector, where there's this drive of increasing payment options or payment channels such as digital platforms and whatnot. Today, most of the insurance companies have adopted this digital payment solutions through mobile money, online, and so on and so forth. My co-host Konwan talked about churches doing services online. We have seen people now giving, online, using online options to give their tithes and offerings and other contributions, which was unheard of. I think a few years ago, if you brought out up that idea of giving online, I think you would be viewed in a certain context. I think it wouldn't go well. But I think right now, I think we're getting used. And there was a time I was attending some workshop to do with smallholder farmers. It was an international conference in South Africa, and there was some interesting stories I heard from Zimbabwe, where I don't know why, mostly, hardship, just pushes us to innovate. And I believe even this COVID has really pushed us to, to step up. So in Zimbabwe, when there were those issues of cash, tight cash, or the scarcity of cash, they came up with a lot of innovations, which trickled down to the very ordinary people, such as farmers, who are able to trade right now. They are able to trade, to sell their products through their mobile money accounts. They don't have to get actual cash. And I think for me, when technology trickles down to that level, I think we really see the mass impact, or the impact to the very bottom of the pyramid. Now, Mimi, in terms of sectors that are doing fine, what's your take on this? Are you seeing which sectors are you seeing to be doing better than others? I know you have interacted quite a bit, and in insurance side.
I would actually say I think the mass market has been resilient over this COVID period. And I think it's something that comes down to adaptability. And also, it can also be driven probably by need. I think when we reach a point whereby I think those who were affected with COVID mostly were the people who we consider the unbanked, the mass market people. They had to adapt to ensure that they continue doing business, because it was difficult for them to actually put their business plans on hold. And this has actually proven to be the most resilient sector in the market. In terms of industry, we've seen a lot of innovation that's come across in terms of trading, payments, and insurance. There's also a drive across bill payments and mobile money. That linkage is now, I think, something that is going very strong, in that almost all bill payment platforms will be paid. And the drive to this has been, how do we get the education across for people to adopt this technology? And one, we need to start having conversations at the level people are able to understand. And I think that's one of the things that we've noticed, is that when you break down all this scary technology, all this terminology, and explain it to the person you're speaking to, then you end up with a situation where people are easily able to adapt and adopt, rather than taking the technology and just throwing it to the public and saying, here's the system, here's the process. Once you begin the education, then you see the adoption comes on board. And I think we've really seen that in terms of how the direct payments has been adopted, how Pakra is now online and streamlined, and people now are able to do RATSA payments. And these are things that previously there was a pushback in the market, because people would be like, how am I paying my RATSA online? How am I going to get my desk? Or how am I sending mobile money to somebody? And the systems in place are also beginning to support that. And we're looking at more interoperability across the networks and across the banking sector that are able to facilitate these cross-channel payments. Because one of the things that needs to happen is, as a consumer, I need to be able to do business the way I do business, but it has to be supported across all the cross platforms, which means networks need to start speaking to each other, and banks need to start speaking to each other and supporting the payments across the platforms. And the systems behind that also need to speak to each other. And those are the things that need to happen to ensure that everybody, no one gets left behind, and everybody is able to adopt and adapt. And your learning scope in such a situation is not so wild as to alienate you from the technology you're trying to adapt, because you're building on a platform that you already know. And I think that's something everybody needs to be cognizant of.
Brilliant.
Awesome, brilliant. I think Mimi, you've said something. Probably just a follow-up question to that. You've talked about how that there's a need for networks to begin to feed into each other. Do you feel that is happening at the pace that it ought to happen, especially that it seems as though every single day there's a need to connect this network, this platform, and as opposed to having kind of platforms that are kind of working as silos, but they should be integrated together. Do you feel we are working at the right pace, and are the institutions that are supposed to be integrating this doing that in at the right pace? You'd say.
I think interoperability has been on the market and has been on the table for a long time now. It's something that the networks have been talking about. It's something that the regulators have been talking about. And I think this is something that the National Switch is looking to facilitate. So it's something that's on the table, it's something that's in development, and it's something that we'll be looking to achieve very soon. So currently, the drive is there, the willpower is there, and it just needs to that extra little push while you understand the nature of business and business drivers, but in the end the market needs will win and we'll get there.
Brilliant, awesome. Well, Luonga, I would
Yeah.
like us to probably now shift that we start looking at probably the economic impact that upgrading technology has had on the Zambian economy. What would you say has been the impact of technology on the Zambian ecosystem?
Wow, it's a loaded question. um, I think that if you look at some of the trends over the past maybe 5 years, um, especially what Zicta has been able to show us in the reports in terms of adoption of whether it's financial systems, whether it's in the use of internet, whether it's in access to devices. Generally, you see an increase. I think the recent statistic about us having either close to 100% or I think 95% or somewhere there, I can't quite remember, access to network. So there are more subscribers, of course, than there are people, because some of us have 2 or 3 phones. But you are able to see that access has always been increasing over the past years, and whether it's use of mobile money and such platforms, very, very positive, right? And I think that what that does then is opens up possibilities to what we can do, that people have some level of access to devices and internet. The question then changes from I have internet to what can I actually do with the internet and the device that I have. And I think that's why attaching that to the use of and access to basic services that we need to use online is important. If I'm forced to pay for tax online, I find the use case for me using internet or me having access to a smartphone. If I am now forced to pay for, I don't know, passport or something like that, if I'm forced to pay for those fees that are pervasive every day to use those services, if we are forced to use technology and platforms like that, it increases our usage. So I think that over the past few years, and there are lots of statistics about how we are progressing as a country, and you can round it up by saying very positive in terms of the basics. And of course, there are always people who then say, but in the rural areas, there are still people who don't have access. I think that will get to them eventually, and that there are lots of positives at the moment. But I tend to always ask the question is, once people have basic access to technology, what do they use it for? And I think that our role, especially in the technology industry and lots of players, is to need the pull factor that makes people stay on the internet and use these platforms for good, beyond just saying I have internet access, I have a phone, subscriber, I have mobile money account, but are you actually using it? So there's a push and pull there, but overall, I think that there's been a positive impact of technology on the economy. And we need to start asking deeper questions now about what we are using these platforms and these devices for, now that some of us have access to these things.
Yeah, definitely there's been some positive impact on the economy. I mean, if I can send money, for instance, to my mother who is in the village down there in southern province, and she's able to, instead of going to the bank or and what, she can just check on her phone, and then she's received um, money just like that. I think for me that's progressive. It seems time is really moving so fast. I'll read out some interesting comments from those who are following us. Kenegi Tukua say is following. Thomas Musukwa says, as an end user of the Hobbiton platform, all right, I'm pleased to mention that it's made my investing life easier. All right, so I'll come, but he's got a complaint. All right, I'll come to that shortly. Matongo Mwemba following closely. Rhoda Kakoma, powerful insights by Mimi on human-centered design. Someone has taken note of that, Mimi. Jenny from is following. Ivan following. Martin Kanyinda, hello, son, Webi. Okay, thank you. Mishek is saying, press on. Rhoda is saying, how can we carry our non-tech savvy, be it friends or relatives, into the digital age? What tips would you give? All right, so just take note of that question. Let me read out another one. Samuel ML has a long comment which I'll read out. Really interesting discussion, WTJ and team. The recent COVID crisis has shown that closing the digital divide needs a sustained and deliberate policy on education. We have seen companies stepping up to provide services that are ordinarily necessities in other parts of the world. Sadly, if people mindsets are not ready to receive and leverage the digital solution, our progress is threatened and the entrepreneurs suffer. Quality education remains the key to a truly transformed, digitally enabled economy. Then Samuel has gone on to tag friends. That's what we need. Wilfred Sakala, one of the directors of the Preston Foundation, is saying this is excellent. Technology has brought the world closer and easier to operate. Jenny Twambo is saying, how far behind are we in technology in comparison to the developed countries? So maybe as a way of addressing these questions, I think in addition to the last question from Jenny, I think I'll add something in terms of how we are faring, how our digital solutions are competing at international level. Let's begin with the question from Samuel ML. What's your comment? I hope you still remember it, Luonga.
Could you maybe go over that particular question?
All right. So, why is it? All right. Let's start with how we are faring at international level. Let's start with that. Mimi, you want to go, or Luonga, you can still go first?
Ladies first.
Okay, I think the gap is really not that wide. I think the challenges that we have are more on financing and startup and setup. But in terms of the ideas and the skill set, I think we are world class. It's something that, if you look at the scope of work that is being done on the market and the developments that are there, of course, for in terms of sectors such as STEM and AI, we cannot say that we're at the world class level. But those are not things that basically our school system and our current structure looks at. But in terms of development, in terms of meeting customer needs, in terms of providing solutions that work for the market that we have, I think we're able to do that. one of the things that happens is that people look at technology that's in developed countries. But what they forget is that that technology was built for the needs of the markets that are there. So the important thing is not how far are we in comparison to the technology that's available in the developing countries. What it is are we meeting the needs of our market? Are we meeting the needs of our customers? Are we meeting the needs of the sectors that we need to deal with? And are we meeting these needs based on the current situation on the ground? So if you look at probably AI and that level of technology, it would be pointless to import it into this country and start to develop it at the level that probably other sectors have, because that you're going to end up with a mismatch with the market that's currently there. Most of our payment systems right now is based on USSD. The biggest payment channel in the world, which is M-Pesa, is based on USSD. And this is what probably someone would consider primitive technology. But when you look at the volumes and the needs and the numbers of customers that actually use this system, are they meeting the market needs? Yes. Are they able to meet the market needs in challenging situations? Yes. Are they able to facilitate payments and technology is being adopted by the masses? Yes, it is. So based on the fact that we're able to meet the needs of the market, I think we're on par with developing countries.
All right. Then the question I missed, I think, was from Rhoda. How can we carry our non-tech savvy, be it friends or relatives, into the digital age? What tips would you give, Luonga?
When I look at how we use some of these platforms, we don't go for workshops. So no one taught you how to, you didn't go for a workshop to learn how to use Facebook, right? And the reason why you're on Facebook is because you knew your friends were on that platform and you wanted to connect.
Yeah.
So I think that from a technology provider's perspective, I think we need to give more reason for people to become tech savvy. There needs to be. I don't think that learning technology in itself is the end goal. And what is, like, my mom, when she's transacting on mobile money, right? Probably one person, when she went to the booth, she was just taught, okay, press star, what. And then now, because she needs to transfer money all the time, she knows she needs to remember those things. Tell her anything about AI and all these things, it's not relevant. There is no need. She will not find anything there to remember. And I think so. It's a push-pull situation. I think that people need to understand what is relevant to them. And that's why when you say tech savvy, for me, even an old person being able to use USSD platform and they clearly use it for a purpose, they're tech savvy. I think that they're using it for whatever they need to in their life, and it's relevant. And so whenever we are dealing with and trying to help them to become better in terms of technology, I think context is always important. And I think Mimi talked about human-centered design. It's a mindset where everything that you are doing and designing, you are designing with people in mind. And so when we are looking at all these people that we claim are behind and they're not tech savvy, let's try to understand what technology they need to use to better their lives. And for some of them, it's just open a Facebook page for your business. That's enough. Once you can do that effectively, you can get a few more buyers and you can make a bit more money. So it's all about context. It's not really about, knowing everything that is to be known about how to use a smartphone, but really it's understanding what do you need to use that particular technology for, and making sure that, you're able to learn and or be taught on how to use that. So context for me is very, very important. Yeah.
All right. I like that. Maybe as we wind up, there's another question from Jenny who is saying, would you say that access to the internet in Zambia is expensive as compared to other countries in the region?
I think that's a difficult one. I think there are so many factors that determine pricing that it's always easy sometimes to look at the actual end price point. But other factors such as the cost of doing business need to come in. I think that's the starting point that we need to look at. What is the cost of doing business? What's the cost of setting up the network? What is the cost of running the business? And I think that actually leads to the price points that we have. And also, what's the scale that's available? I think economies of scale are something that also come into play when you talk about pricing. So it's a bit unfair to always look at, oh, Zambia is expensive, but these are so many factors that we need to look at before we are able to look at
Yeah.
and say internet in Zambia is expensive. Are we comparing like to like? Are we comparing the same number of users? Are we comparing the same cost of doing business? Are we comparing the same ease of doing that business? So these are the factors that we need to consider before we can give a black and white answer on that.
Yeah. All right. I like that. Now, recently, I think there's been the topical issue of online voter registration and whatnot. But just as a way of maybe making a comment there, Luonga, do you think or how far are we from having our first election online, where we just vote online and there you go, you have your results and people are able to trust the system and have confidence and accept the results? How far are we?
I don't think it's the technology. Technology is very straightforward, very easy, I would say. And I'm pushing it, I know, by saying very easy. But what I'm saying is, for that type of platform, it can be done. In fact, it probably could have been done years ago. The real issue is trust for such platforms. Are we able to build the right level of trust amongst ourselves in order for us to trust the system? Just look at what's happening in America, all right? Even for people that we claim, that we think are more exposed and much more aware of these things, they also still have issues with just voting itself, right? And they have a huge issue about whether vote through the ballot, whether Russia hacked some of this. So it's really about trust, and I think that if we can conduct these processes and instill a level of trust, things can be done easily. But like you said, 50% people, digital transformation, that is where the real challenge is. We can increase that percentage, because particularly for this lives, and that's a complex scenario. And I would say that once we can create the processes that instill a healthy level of trust about technology itself, particularly for voting, that can be done. The system itself and the platform can be done overnight. That's not a problem.
I love that. All right. So as we conclude today, Mimi, where do you see Zambia technologically in the next 5 to 10 years? And maybe I'll still pose the same question to Luonga.
It's an exciting space. I mean, my team of developers is actually very, very young. I think it would be surprised if I'm probably like one of the oldest people in the company. We've literally got people who are coming straight out of school, and the things they consider, the concepts they conceptualize, and the ideas that are there are actually, and to see that is very exciting. It's very encouraging, and it shows the scope of where we're going in terms of the technology drive in the company. So I think world class, on par with many developed nations in terms of the bespoke technology that is being built, and I think we're on the right track.
Yeah.
And it's very obvious the land developed country that is out there.
Awesome. All right. You're talking of graduates, but Mimi, you look like a graduate. So, all right. That's interesting.
Yeah, thank you for that.
Luonga, what's your take on how do you see us in the next 5 to 10 years technologically?
I think 5 years. I'm very excited about the government service bus. I think that if government is and will be able to implement a number of online platforms for the different government services, I think that coupled with the national switch, should really drive adoption even higher. I think once government gets its act together in terms of allowing people to transact online for government services, everything else beside that will just be much more straightforward. Because I mean, if you can do business with government and you trust an online platform, Mimi can come up with an app, and Mimi doesn't even have to try to convince you to use it, because you have a certain level of trust that you've developed for online platforms. So I'm pretty excited about what government online services will do to the local technology ecosystem, and the opportunities that it will unlock, coupled of course with the national switch. And so that's where I see lots of growth, I think, particularly for e-commerce and people's awareness of technology. So I see that as a big opportunity in the region. I've seen that in a number of countries, they are not yet at our level. And if we are just sort of starting around this space, we could really be a formidable ecosystem in the region in the next 5-10 years. Yeah.
Awesome. All right. As we come to the end of the show, any tips, any closing remarks on today's topic? And as you do that, I'd like to inform those who have just joined us that Wane Ngambi was unable to join us because of a bereavement which he just received shortly before the show, and we send our heartfelt condolences to him and the family. So that's the reason he has not joined us. Wane Ngambi is the Chief Digital Officer at Zambia National Commercial Bank, and we are trusting that we'll still bring him back in the near future. So coming back to our topic, technology and the Zambian ecosystem, what are your tips, and how do you close this discussion? We start with Mimi and Luonga.
I think it's been a very wonderful discussion. Thank you for having me, and Luonga, your insight has been brilliant as well. I think what I'd like to close with is that there is technology and technology providers in the market that are local, and they are supported by businesses as well as the government in terms of that development. And I think this drive is what's driving the market in terms of the advancement that we've seen. Previously, a lot of multinationals or foreign companies had taken over the space, but now we're seeing a drive towards building a local ecosystem that's supported by Zambian developers, Zambian writers of code, as well as Zambian systems, built Zambian, owned by Zambians, and actually a lot of apps are being developed right now, whereby when you look at, okay, who are the people developing it, it gives a comfort for the future of the market. One of the things that happens with technology that we bring in from abroad is that, yes, it expands the skill set, but this is not something that is currently sitting in the market. So when we see this drive towards local technology, local platforms, local developers, it gives a comfort for the future of the sector. And it's something that I'm actually excited about.
Awesome. Luonga.
Yeah, so when you look at the Zambian ecosystem, I think that one thing that needs to happen is happening and needs to happen more. It's just more collaboration. Zambia is small, 17 million people, not many, and I think that if we can create more platforms that enable us to share, collaborate, work together, of course, and really look at our position as a country and how we can become more competitive by putting our minds together, I think that we can really progress much faster than we have so far. So I think for me, the silos are what reduce the progress that we can make if we just thought a bit outside the box and considered ourselves more as allies and not as competitors. So I think there's room in this market to be able to work much more closely together and look at how we can make Zambia much more competitive in the region. Yeah.
All right.
Agreed.
Well, Mr. Luonga Lindunda, thank you so much for joining us on this program, as well as Miss Mimi Lungu. We appreciate for taking time to join us on this program. Well, we come to the end of our program. Today we've been looking at technology and the Zambian ecosystem. We're featuring Luonga Lindunda, Executive Director at Bongohive, as well as Mimi Lungu, the Chief Commercial Officer at Hobbiton. We're also supposed to have Wane Ngambi, the Chief Digital Officer at Zambia National Commercial Bank, but because of a bereavement which he just received shortly before the program, we were unable to have him. My co-host Kondwani Ziambo has some tech issues, and he dropped out, and unfortunately he cannot come back. But thank you so much, all of you, for joining us. We look forward to another exciting edition of the Press on Leadership Forum in 2 weeks' time. So, from me, Webster Tombo Jr., the chairperson of the Press on Foundation, thank you so much for joining us. And remember, it's all about pressing on. Bye-bye.
Okay.